Well, thank you very much, and greetings to Bremen. My name is Gino Harlos. Welcome to Univention Corporate Server as container with automated setup. If you're looking for the content for the contact container at univention.de, please remember I'm not a 24/7 support. So, because I work as a special teacher in the German school in the afternoon, we will have a demonstration which will take about 30 minutes, but it will largely run in the background. You will see that. We will do a debootstrap, a container build and a deploy. What are we looking at? It's a relatively full TMUX session. You can see it on the left side. That's the interesting parts are the container images, followed by the volumes. Then we'll do a bit of networks, and because we want to watch, to monitor which containers are running, we take a look at that every 5 minutes. The demonstration part itself is the bootstrap. Followed by the Docker image, followed again by the Docker run for the deploy. And to be able to watch this, we will have a container options. So we won't need an NFS at this point. Let's get started with the demo. Can you switch to full screen? What do we see? The image is full. The screen is full. And let's get rid of what is unnecessary. So can you hear me now? We have a technical problem here now. Unfortunately, I can see that the technicians are busily trying to reestablish the connection. Well, then I'll tell you how Gino joined us. Gino took a look at the Docker containers, wanted to use them, and noticed in the process that they can't handle AP46. Then he took a look at our public source code and saw a comment IP46 to do, and he said, okay, he thought, okay, I'll do it. So he got cracking on the containers and got going there. I hear the telephone ringing, so we'll use the backup connection. We have prepared the slides here so that hopefully we can soon continue with the presentation.
Dann sind wir wieder on air und das kommt echt zu gut.
So we're on air. That is a good thing, of course, to have a technical problem. Are we back? Can you please confirm? The slides aren't online yet, but we should see them. Okay. The demonstration is running in the background. I'll try to see if I need to do anything here. Right. Somebody needs to release the camera and microphone again. Oh. Now I see what the problem is. Well, we have the slides back up and running here in Bremen. Right, what a good crash. That is part of live stream. You should be able to see a TMUX session and various commands are running. No, right now we see the title page of the cover page of your slides. We can jump to page 3 though, where you have the breakdown of the TMUX session. Right. So you have switched from my screen to the presentation. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. Okay. Then let's hope that we will get the image back. I will look into the demo. That looks promising. It's running. I get a ping of 1 millisecond. Let's see. So let's move on to the next slide then, and let's take a look at the agenda. So what are we planning to do? The agenda says demonstration, bootstrap, build, and deploy. We've done that already. It's running in the background already. Then we'll do a bit of introduction and motivation, so the how and what. After that, we'll take a look at this ominous bootstrap image and how we can get it. Then we'll take a look at the local registry / Docker hub. And then it'll get more interesting. And we'll see container options and environment variables, i.e. how can we control the container. And if we still have enough time, we go back to the motivation and review whether we have implemented everything successfully. According to the motto, there are no stupid questions, only stupid answers. So if you have any questions, please ask them, if necessary, in parallel while we control the demonstration. Next slide, please. We are moving on to introduction and motivation. So it says here, this is a self-deploying container for running a Univention corporate server with a system role of master, slave, backup, member, or base system. What can we do here? We can run an automated setup with environment variables. We can also import certificates, at least the root certificate with sign key. Optionally, the host and SSO certificates. If you want to do that, you can do that. It's UCS.SSO. We can overwrite and manipulate the Univention config registry. Well, manipulating sounds harsh. We can modify it. We can install additional packages from the Univention default repository, and we can add applications. Then we have this great apps Univention App Center, so we can add applications there. For those who are trying to scan the QR code, hurry up. That's the last chance, because I'll continue anon. Next slide. You know, in order to be able to adjust the system role, what are Univention container modes? What is this? It's a simple system D based container. What is it not? It's not a multi-container environment where we have broken down everything into different services. We don't have that. We have one single container. Next slide, please. Right. The ominous image from scratch. You may not trust the Docker Hub and say, okay, we'll build it ourselves. So if you wish, there's a little bit of a script that we prepared. And then you can use Podman or Docker to run a bootstrap and import your container image. Nothing easier than that. Bootstrap, Docker both work. Podman and Docker both work, and Bootstrap works for all Linux-based operating systems, whether system-based, local, or web-based. Next slide. Container image, self-build. Again, optionally, Docker search. The Docker Hub, you can search there whether you find the right thing. I think you need to be a bit patient. Some automated functions need to be established behind the scenes. We're not right there yet. But we can run the Docker builds, hand over a few parameters, and then we always know what's up to date. For all Podman users, try to enter alias Docker equals Podman, and then things should work for you. So now it's getting a bit more interesting. Container options and environment variables. How can we inform the container about the domain name that it's supposed to have? We do that simply by docker hostname hostname.domain name. That is a minimal configuration where we get a master. Bit of a recommendation that I have. Call it something. So you have docker --name hostname.domain name, and then we know which container do we have here. If you want to monitor the start/boot process more closely, you can do that with the environment variable debug equals true. What can we see there? Well, you'll see a lot more as you watch the boot process, and that's probably good for error search, etc. Container environment. So let's continue with the system role. As I said, we can establish different system roles, be it master, slave, backup, member, or base system, not a problem. You have the environment variable role, and then you indicate master, slave, backup, member, or base system. And if we don't do that, we will always have the primary directory node, i.e. master. If we don't have a name now, then we have to join a master and indicate an access name. We do that with domain controller name, user account, and user password. I haven't had a chance to test it 100% yet. The Docker names are imported and taken into consideration. Now, certificates. Oh, great topic. We can import certificates. I'm always speaking of the plural, but at least we need one root certificate with a sign key. What does that look like? We have a minimum or maximum JSON string, and we put all the information required into this string. We can see here that we are transmitting a root certificate with a single line base 64 string in it, and you simply can put it here. Of course, we need to transmit an encryption, i.e. together with the appropriate sign key. Root password and administrator password. Password is a nice topic as well. Everybody may not want it to be generated automatically, but if you don't indicate it, then a password will be generated, and you can take a look at it with a script which is called secrets. You can if you hand over a join help, you can also overcome some problems and get some important information. So by default, a root password will be generated. Every administrator will establish their own password, but if we don't have an administrator, then at least the root password will be generated. Container root, well, maybe we need a bit more automation here. And SSH and public and private key authentication would be appropriate. So we can work here with an SSH key. We can transmit a public key and transfer it to the container root account. Name resolution. We learned earlier that we can have this master join. So we have the system role, master, slave, backup, member. And here it makes sense to transmit an IP address for name resolution. We can put in at least 3 different IP addresses. And for the master, a forced local host's IP address. Why? Every master should ask themselves first, and if they don't know how to resolve things anymore, then it goes to the other IP addresses. And a DNS forward resolver would overwrite these three IP addresses, and if none of them give a result, then we can fall back on Cloudflare, Google, or Quad9. Language and time. Standard language is English, has always been. Of course, if you need to, if you want to, you can switch to German by indicating language equals DE underscore DE. You can also change encoding from UTF-8 to whatever. Time. The time zone has been defined as world time, i.e. UTC. And in Germany, we normally probably use Europe/Berlin. Here in Stockholm, I like to write Europe/Stockholm. Again, some freedom, and it saves us some volume mapping to transmit the time zone. Here we indicate the variable, and then the system knows that we're in such and such a time zone. Now let's move on to what I feel is the most interesting topic, really. How can we adjust the config registry? We can do it either via inventable variables or with via JSON. All lowercase variables will be taken to the registry, well, except the registry itself is not taken into consideration, and certificates are not considered. So if our key sub-value, it will be converted into a slash, and that already covers a large number of config registry issues. If the key is empty, the key is reset to UCR set key. Overwriting the config registry is possible with JSON, just following the JSON key value, and it will be simply overwritten like that. If the value is ever 0, you can reset the variable by UCR unset key. Maybe you want to add a few packages, and you can do that, of course. Now, I didn't know which one is the best one to use, so I said, okay, let's use both Nano and Vim and add them. So it says install, followed by the name, will install those packages. Of course, we can uninstall them, but they're not oftentimes uninstalled. They're not really uninstalled. They're marked as uninstalled, and if they really aren't used anymore, then they disappear. Then Samba 4 cups, we can add that as well from the Univention App Center. And if we take a look at the overall JSON string, then we have install, add app, install, or remove, with the app or the package simply listed as a string. We're really done very quickly. After 20 minutes, we're in the review already. I probably forgot half of it. Sönke, you might get ready to ask a few questions, and we'll take the time and review all of this, whether we actually have a container with different system roles. So how do we check this? Can we configure in an automated way, run an automated setup? Yes, I think we can do that. We hand over the environment variables, docker run --env, and then the variable. Bob's your uncle, here you go. Can we override the config registry? Yes, we can. That wasn't part of the demonstration. Okay, only indirectly, because I transmitted the language, and that really adjusted the config registry. Can we import certificates? Yes, we can. You weren't able to see this, unfortunately. The demo encompasses the root certificate that was externally created and then transferred, so that's possible. So root certificates can be imported. Installation of extra packages or apps from the Univention App Center, we can do that. The dress rehearsal showed that Xamba 4, adding Xamba 4 would have been too much for the time scale available, so it's not part of the demonstration, but we can add apps and packages. A composition of different containers. This Docker Compose, yes, we can do that. But it's not really part of my project or this project here. I'd say I'll leave that to your hands. Just take different scenarios, create your own composition with different YAML files and Docker Compose. And then we move on to the topic that will make some of you feel uneasy, but we have a problem with app centers. With some app centers, some centers require Docker, and then we have the problem that we have Docker inside of Docker. So we have to give enhanced privileges to the container, but they are so high that the container would have root rights. So I'd say yes, Docker in Docker is possible, please not in production. So that took us through the whole lot very quickly. We have time for a few questions, but let me give you a tip which I would like to mention. Let me just jump back to a different slide. The slide which was so interesting. It dealt with registry. So here let's think about what we could do with this config registry with key value. What could we do with this? I'll have a cup of tea and you can give it a thought. Some may jubilate now. Okay, we can import an old root certificate and we can adjust our old environment, but they're not only imported, they're also interpreted. So the subject from the root certificate will be transferred to the config registry. So now, let's move on another slide. We are at the point where we want to verify our demonstration. Dear Sönke, can you check whether some questions have arrived? I need some time from the technicians. Can we go back to the demo for the monitor? No, unfortunately we can't. So you don't have it there. I have the demo here. Well, I think we have enough time to check what it's all about, what the problem is. So I'll just jump to the other window here. I can see myself in my webcam. Oh, maybe release monitor. I just shared my screen. That looks good on my end. Okay. The demonstration is still running in the background, but we're just on a successful part. Dear Sönke, may I suggest, do we have any questions? We need to bridge a bit of time here. Yes, we got a few questions. There are participants who are really interested in your modifications, and one question that was asked is, instead of config registry, can you use policies for the environment variables? Policies for the environment variables, that's a nice question. I would have to think about it for a while. I'd say probably yes, but I don't have an exact idea of how to implement it. the registry variables can be transferred one-to-one. So, for instance, we can take, what do we take? SSL count, SSL country, and you add the country, and then it's contained. So if that's a point in the policy, then of course we can transfer it. All part of the config registry can be transferred. Another question, is there a possibility of handing over the configuration of the secret files without having to use environmental variables? Well, for the secrets, let me make it a bit clearer. The Docker Swarm secrets are transferred. They're only transferred as environmental variables. So if I'm smart and enter run secret name with the contents, and add the file there, then this will be imported outside of the environmental environment and will be interpreted there. Imported and interpreted. Okay, how can we push this project further? Another question that was asked, is there a possibility of updating these Docker containers? Normally we have a fully fledged UCS inside of a Docker. Where are the application data stored? Well, the volume aspect was lost when we had the technical problem here. If you want to get some inspiration, take a look at the Docker files. At the very bottom, there are some important nodes, but otherwise, consider this container to it's almost like a virtual machine that you put into a container. It has a lot of freedom, but it's a very good question. Make sure that you know where the data is. Just take a look at what you're doing there. Another question is, what did you do this for? Why did you take all this work upon yourself, and is it all productive? No, that's a good question. I have to to start on a slightly long-winded answer. About 2 years ago, I came across the Univention containers, and I was unhappy with them to an extent. And then for a year, I didn't work on it too much. And then I came back from the summer holiday last year, and I thought there must be something I can do. So I was wondering, what can I do to increase the productivity? I use the domain controller, I do a single sign-on, and then fine. But how long did it take? Let me think for a moment. Last year in August is when I started. In September I contacted Univention, and today is January, and it's done. So it was a lot of homework, but on the side. All right, and if you think about what points can you see where the Docker integration could be improved in the context of UCS? Well, I would point at UDM, the Univention Directory Manager. I think the LDAP needs to be extended. I didn't take a look at that at all. So this is not contained at all. So that is something that could be added. So if we have a master, it should have an LDAP data set or be fed with data. So for LDAP, I see some improvement, need for improvement with this project. Otherwise, you have to do something with Docker afterwards. Okay, thank you very much for the beautiful presentation with a lot of detail. And I would like to move on to the next presentation. Nico Gulden is getting ready. Yes, thank you very much. And I think that we did very well in terms of time. So we have a little bit of time left. If we have any further questions, Gino will go to the breakout stage 1. So if you have any further questions, contact him directly there and he will answer your question.